In the heart of Enugu, a busy town where money spoke louder than voices, there stood a grand mansion that looked down on every other home. It was the home of the Okoyes. The Okoyes were not just rich, they were very rich. People who admired them said they had so much money that even their pets lived better than most families. Chief Uchenna Okoye, their father, was a powerful businessman. He owned buildings, shops, trucks, and many more businesses. Chief Okoye was feared, respected, and admired. One thing that stood out for him was that anything he touched turned to wealth. People said he had houses in Enugu, Abuja, and even Ghana. But despite his wealth and fame, there was one thing that made the Okoye's name a source of fear and confusion. None of his daughters were married. People whispered about the family in the market, hair salons, and church gatherings. Are the girls cursed, or is their father's wealth behind their miserable lives? How can three beautiful girls from such a rich family not have husbands? In all their whispers, no one dared to ask the Okoyes directly. Some said the girls were too proud. Others said the family believed that no man was good enough for them. Many speculated that Mrs. Okoye, their mother, was the one behind their problem. They gossiped that she had sacrificed her daughter's marriages for her ageless beauty. Mrs. Okoye was once a beauty queen. Many years ago, she had won Miss Enugu. She didn't stop there. She had contested for other pageantries. Some she emerged the winner, and others she was the runner-up. Mrs. Okoye was that beautiful, and now she was in her 50s. Everyone expected her to age, but she looked young, just like her daughters. If you were new in town, you would think she was one of the Okoye's daughters. She acted as though she was still in her 20s when she first wore the crown as Miss Enugu. Mrs. Okoye was tall and beautiful, with eyes that shine like diamonds. One would clearly agree that her three daughters took after her ageless beauty. She had met her husband, Chief Uchenna Okoye, during one of her many trips to Zanzibar. They fell in love, got married, and immediately they started having children. They had three beautiful daughters, Adora, Ifunaya, and Oluchi. Unlike most families whose children had to fend for themselves because their parents had gone out to secure their daily meal, Adora, Ifunaya, and Oluchi grew in love and wealth. Their father ensured that they had maids who attended to every one of their needs. The maids ensured that the girls had no reason to lift a pin by themselves. The girls were pampered so much that they became the envy of many. Unlike many fathers who were ashamed of having only female children, Chief Uchenna Okoye was a proud father of three beautiful girls. Mrs. Okoye, on the other hand, was a very busy career woman who paid less attention to her girls. As the girls grew older, Adora, the first daughter, became known for her sharp tongue. She didn't respect those who had no money. If you were poor, she wouldn't even look at you. To crown it up, her sisters were exactly like her. They were proud and full of themselves. Their arrogance made their domestic staff so afraid of them. Those who tried to correct them were embarrassed, insulted, or ignored. As the years went by, people expected to hear wedding bells from the Okoye's mansion, but nothing happened. Chief Okoye didn't care. He believed no man was worthy of his daughters. My girls are princesses, he would often say. Only kings can come for them. In no time, suitors came and left. Some were chased away by Chief Okoye himself. Others were mocked by Adora and her sisters. The town kept watching. But time has always passed. Even though the Okoye girls lived a life many could only dream of, Their story was not as perfect as it looked. Adora, the first daughter, was the most outspoken of them all. She was very beautiful, tall, light-skinned, just like her mother. But she had a big problem. She looked down on everyone. She believed that no man was rich enough, fine enough, or even smart enough to marry her. If my father has 10 houses, why should I marry a man who is still renting a house? She would say with her nose in the air. Ifunanya, the second daughter, was different, but not in a good way. She didn't speak much, but her pride was in her silence. She would never respond to greetings from people who she felt were below her level. Even their driver had once complained that she had treated him like a housefly. Instead of Ifunanya to apologize, she made him to kneel down under the scorching sun. And then there was Oluchi, the last daughter. She believed she was a queen. She often said, "My father's money is enough. Oh, why should I marry a man who will control me? I don't need a man to complete me. I beg. Let me enjoy my father's money in peace," she would say, while tossing her hair and scrolling through her phone. These were the daughters of Chief Okoye. Many young men had tried to ask for their hands in marriage, but none of them ever succeeded. Some came in with courage and left with tears. Others were not even allowed to see the girls, especially when Chief Okoye found out about their family background or saw the car they drove. "No daughter of mine will marry a man that doesn't have what I have," Chief Okoye once shouted. "In fact, they must marry someone who is much more richer than I am." As time passed, Adora, Ifunanya, and Oluchi became more beautiful, more fashionable, and untouchable. The girls moved around town like queens. Expensive cars dropped them at the salon, lounges, and shopping malls. They wore the latest clothes and changed their phones every few months. But there was one thing they lacked. They had no respect for people. They looked down on others, especially men who dared to talk to them. Adora once told a man who came to greet her at a wedding ceremony, "Do you know how much my shoe cost? It can pay your rent for 10 years. Ifunanya was the most quiet. Even at that, she had hot temper. One day, while she was waiting for her lunch, the chef on duty had delayed a little longer. She was very angry. She walked down to the kitchen, looked at her up and down, and she gave her a hot slap on her cheeks. "Don't ever waste my time again like that. Do you hear me? Dirty thing," she said. On the other hand, Oluchi was known for her loud voice. If a man greeted her, she would say, "Do I look like your mate?" People started avoiding the Okoye girls. The bold ones who once admired their beauty didn't give up on them. They kept coming and facing their share of disgrace. As the years passed, Adora, Ifunanya, and Oluchi grew into mature women. They were beautiful, no doubt, but their bad character grew louder with them. The girls were proud, picky, and very difficult. Suitors had come in the past. Some were wealthy, some were humble, some were even famous, but none of them stayed. Adora, the first daughter, was the worst. She looked at men like they were nobody. She would say things like, "What is your monthly salary, Seth? My father gives me more than that every other day." Ifunanya was also arrogant. She always believed that any man who wanted her must worship her. Just like her sisters, Oluchi grew. She acted sweet outside, but she was very rude in private. She would smile at men during a dinner date and then complain later at home. "He chews too loud like a goat. His English is even too poor. I beg, I can't marry that one, no," she would say in a condescending manner. Their behavior made many men walk away quietly. The few that tried to stay were frustrated until they gave up too. Soon, the whole Enugu knew that the Okoye girls were problematic. As the years passed, the Okoye daughters grew older. Adora turned 33, Ifunanya was 30, and Oluchi, she was 28 years old. They were still beautiful, but single. Suitors had stopped coming. By this time, the town was quiet about them. However, Chief Okoye started to worry. At first, he assured himself that good men were coming for his daughters. As more time passed and more of his friends' daughters got married, he began to panic. One evening, Chief Okoye called his daughters for a meeting. When they arrived, he cleared his throat and then he asked, Adora, Ifunanya, Oluchi, when do you plan to settle down? I mean, when will you be getting married? The girls laughed and Adora answered, Papa, men are not serious these days. Ifunanya added, we are too young for marriage. Besides, our father has money. Why should we get married? Oluchi just scrolled through her phone and said nothing. Chief Okoye was dumbfounded. He couldn't understand what Ifunanya meant by they were too young to be married at age 30. He became restless. Secretly, he sent trusted men to find out what people were saying about his daughters. When his men returned, Chief Okoye was shocked about the reports they got. One man said the girls were rude, proud, and mannerless. I can never allow my son to marry from that mannerless family. Another said, even if Chief Okoye gives me one of his houses, I won't marry those girls, so their pride can lead a man to an early grave. Chief Okoye had a panic attack. His once proud chest now carried shame. He tried to beg old friends to introduce their sons to his daughters, but they all gave him excuses. In a desperate move, Chief Okoye called for an emergency press conference. News reporters gathered, thinking he was about to announce a new project. But instead, he said, any man who agrees to marry one of my daughters, I will give him 5 million naira, a duplex in Enugu, and one of my trucks for business. Although people were shocked, but still nobody came forward. Not even one man stepped forward. It became a bigger disgrace. The Okoye girls, once envied and desired, were now avoided by all means. Chief Okoye wasn't the kind of man that gives up easily. He believes money can buy anything, including a husband for his daughters. One morning, Chief Okoye called his daughters into the men's sitting room. It was the biggest sitting room in the mansion, with a giant chandelier hung from the ceiling like the sun. The three girls sat in silence as their father paced the room. I know I have been strict and I have chased away your suitors, but it is time we finally resolve this marriage issue. Adora raised her brows. Papa, marriage again? Ifunanya scoffed. Must we even get married? Oluchi was not even interested at all in the conversation. She wanted their father to release them so she could go back to her room. Yes, you must get married, Chief Okoye said. You are all getting older. You need families of your own, children and husbands. There was a long silence in the room. Adora stood up. But Papa, where are the men? Do you see them lining up at our gates like they used to? But their father didn't reply. She continued, you drove all of them away. You said no one was good enough for us. And to be honest, none of those things deserves us. Why are you suddenly interested in us getting married? Ifunanya added, are you trying to chase us away from our father's house? Chief Okoye sighed. He felt a sharp pain in his chest, but it wasn't his heart, it was shame. Clearly, he didn't raise his daughters right. He remembered when the girls were still children, their housekeeper, Auntie Uju, tried to correct them by disciplining them. But he and his wife had warned her never to raise her hands on their children again. He said they were his pride and wouldn't tolerate any form of discipline meted on them without his permission. Now, all he had left was pieces of shame and regret. He knew he didn't train his daughters right, but he was determined to right his wrong. That same day, he called a meeting with his advisors. "I want to give a gift to any man who marries my daughters," he said. "How big is this gift?" one of the men asked. 10 million naira, a house in Abuja, 2 cars and shares in my business. They couldn't believe their ears. "But sir," his lawyer said carefully, "won't it look like you're trying to bribe people to marry your daughters?" "I don't care what people think," Chief Okoya shouted. "Just make the announcement and get back to me." And so the news spread like fire all over Enugu and even beyond. Marry an Okoye daughter and become a millionaire. Men started arriving from everywhere, young, old, poor, and even rich. But it wasn't that easy. One of the men who had made his intentions known was caught trying to marry Oluchi just to run away with the money. Another slapped Adora during their first dinner, saying she was too rude, and Ifunaya, she rejected her own suitor because he couldn't speak good English. Chief Okoye became restless and angry. "Why can't I give my daughters away peacefully in marriage?" Mrs. Okoye sat beside him in silence. Her face was still beautiful, but her eyes were tired. "Maybe, just maybe, we pamper them too much." Chief Okoye was too tired to respond to his wife. Deep down, he knew both him and his wife had failed the girls. As time went on, the Okoye's mansion became a place of beauty and sorrow. Every day, visitors came to beg Chief Okoye for contracts or help. The girls, still dressed in their finest clothes, drove the latest cars and posted perfect pictures on social media. But inside the house, something was not right. People started to notice. Adora was always angry. She shouted at the maid, argued with her mother, and no longer laughed as she used to. Deep inside her heart, Adora was worried. All her friends were now married, some already had children, but no one was coming for her anymore. "I don't understand," she cried to her mother. "Mother, am I not beautiful? Why is nobody serious coming for me anymore?" Mrs. Okoye held her closer, brushing her hair softly. "You are beautiful, my darling. They are just afraid they can't meet up with your standards. Time is still on your side." But Adora didn't believe the words of her mother. She had chased away too many men with her bad character. Ifunaya started to feel the pressure too. She was always online watching wedding videos. Sometimes she would cry in her room when no one was watching. Then there was Oluchi. One day, she came home and locked herself in her room. When her mother went to check on her, she found her crying. "Mommy," she whispered, "I think I have made a big mistake." "What happened?" her mother asked. "I pushed away someone I really love. He broke up with me just because I slapped his mother." "Mother, I only slapped her on her cheeks." Mrs. Okoye's heart broke. She realized then that her daughters were not just unmarried. They were under something. One evening, Mrs. Okoye sat alone in the garden. Her heart was heavy. The wind was soft, but her mind was noisy. Her daughters, Adora, Ifunaya, and Oluchi, were going through things that didn't make sense. One minute, they were crying over men because they had stopped coming to ask for their hands in marriage. And the next, when a suitor comes, they chase him away with their bad behavior. People were whispering again. Adora was seen shouting at a man who came to greet her. Ifunaya had insulted a suitor in front of his family. Oluchi was simply uninterested in anyone who came close. It wasn't just the embarrassment, it was the pattern. Year after year, things were getting worse. Mrs. Okoye closed her eyes and sighed. "Where did we go wrong?" she whispered. "Were they too pampered? Was it the way I raised them? Or was there something deeper?" Mrs. Okoye was confused and didn't know what to think anymore. That night, after dinner, she sat beside her husband in the living room. Chief Uchenna Okoye was reading the newspaper. She waited for a moment before she spoke. "My husband," she said gently, "I want to speak with you." Chief Okoye looked at her. "Is something wrong?" "Yes," she said. Her voice shook a little. It is about our daughters. He frowned, folding the newspaper. What about them? I don't understand them anymore. Every man that come close to them walk away broken or insulted. Just when I thought they were ready to settle down, they started rejecting proposals again. The girls don't listen at all. They are very rude, proud and empty. Chief Okoya stayed silent for a long time before he spoke up. Do you think it is our fault? I don't know, she whispered, but I can't keep pretending everything is fine. We need to find out what is really wrong before it is too late. Chief Okoya saw fear in his wife's eyes, and deep down, he knew she was right. Was he the cause of the girl's problem? As his wife walked away, he sat still, reminiscing about his past life. The next morning, Chief Okoya had just come down from his car when the familiar smell hit him hard. It was hot local rice and stew. It pulled him back to memory lane. He turned slowly. Across the road, under a faded umbrella, sat a woman scooping rice into a plastic plate. Her wrapper was loosely tied. Her headscarf was old, but her eyes were tired from years of standing in one spot. His heart stopped. Chizoba, Chief Uchenna whispered. For a moment, he couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. Immediately, he entered his car and zoomed off. Even after many years, Chizoba, his longtime girlfriend, was still standing in that same spot where she sold local rice and stew. He remembered how she sold everything she had to see him become somebody in life, but he paid her back with evil. Adora had gone into her father's study to look for a pen. He was out for a late night meeting, and the house was unusually quiet. As she opened the drawer, her hand brushed against something wrapped in nylon. She was curious, so she pulled it out. It was a faded envelope, and her father's handwriting was on it. It read, "Chizoba, please don't destroy me." Her heart skipped. She sat down and slowly unsealed the envelope. Inside the envelope, there were three things: an old photograph of a young, poor-looking Chief Okoya. He was standing beside a beautiful dark-skinned woman selling rice and stew under an umbrella. She saw a letter, then a blood-stained white cloth wrapped in nylon. Adora opened the letter. The writing was rough, hurried, like someone had written it while in panic. Chizoba, I don't even know where to start from. I have made a terrible mistake. I chose wealth over love. I broke a promise I never should have made in the first place. The blood covenant is working. I see it in my daughter's lives. Please, find a place in your heart to forgive me. I saw you at your right stand by Onunu Street. I will come and pay for all I did to you. Please find a place in your heart to forgive me. For the sake of my daughters. They have been through a lot because of my stupidity. Adora stared at the letter for a long time. She couldn't understand anything, but she knew one thing. This Chizoba woman was connected to their pain. But in what way? Early the next morning, she packed the letter, the photo, and the clothes into her handbag and drove into town. She didn't know the streets, but she asked people, both the older traders, women selling vegetable on the street, and bike men. She finally met a meat seller who showed her the place. Go down that road, madam, beside the gutter. You go see one woman where they sell under umbrella. Now she be the Chizoba. Adora thanked him. Then she slowly drove away. Her heart was racing, but she saw Chizoba. Chizoba was a woman in her 50s, dark-skinned with sharp eyes. Adora looked up and their eyes met. Adora stepped out of the car, clutching the letter. As for Chizoba, she didn't flinch. She just stared right back. Chizoba had seen Chief Okoya on the day he came out of his car. She had pretended not to notice him. She knew soon a day like this would come. She calmly said, "You are his daughter, aren't you?" Adora nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Please, I need to speak with you." Chizoba stood up slowly and offered her a chair. Sit, she said. Adora sat down, her hands still shaking. Chizoba watched her for a while, then she asked, "What brings you here?" "I saw a letter directed to you by my father, and something strange, a white cloth with blood stain." Chizoba gave a dry laugh because she understood the content. "So, he kept it after all these years?" "I don't understand any of this," Adora whispered. "I am here for answers." Chizoba knew what was going on. She reached into her cooler and dished rice and stew. She served Adora. "Please eat. I am not hungry," Adora replied. The truth always makes the stomach empty. Adora stared at the rice. Then she looked up. "What happened between you and my father?" she asked. Chizoba's eyes darkened. "Your father was once a man with nothing. No land, no name, just big dreams and empty pockets. I met him here, right here. He was kind, full of life, and I was foolishly in love. I fed him when he was hungry, sold my gold jewelries to see him buy his first goods, and he made a promise to me." Adora listened, her heart pounding. "One night, under that old mango tree near the market, we made a covenant. With blood, he promised to marry me. He swore on his life. I believed him. We had already named all our children." She paused, her voice turning cold. "Then he disappeared. Months later, he returned with a wife, one model girl like that. They had a big wedding ceremony. Their photos were in all the newspapers in town." Adora lowered her head. "I didn't cry in front of anyone. You know what I did? That night, under that tree where we took the oath, I called his name using my menses. I swore that his daughters will never experience the joy of marriage. I swore he will never hear the sound of wedding bells in his home. I didn't know it would last this long. I thought I had forgiven him a long time ago," Chizoba said. "Ma, I am really sorry for how my father treated you. No woman is deserving of this wickedness, but clearly, the curse is still very effective. Can it ever be broken?" Adora begged. "My sisters and I are clearly the ones suffering from my father's wickedness. Please, can it ever be broken?" Chizoba stared at her for a long time. Then she said, "Only your father can undo what he did." Adora started crying. Then she asked, "Would you like to see our father? For our sake, please?" But then Chizoba looked away. "I don't know yet." Chief Uchenna Okoye sat in his study, sipping a glass of brandy. The house was quiet, too quiet. His daughters had all gone silent. No more loud laughter from Oluchi. No TikTok dances from Ifunaya. No firm instructions from Adora. The once bubbling mansion was now dry. A knock at the door had broken the silence. "Adora, please come in," Chief Okoye called out. She stepped in. She didn't want to beat around the bush, so she spoke up. "I saw her," she said. Chief Uchenna blinked. "Saw who?" She walked in slowly and dropped something on the table. It was the envelope and a piece of cloth stained with faded blood. Her father stared at it for a moment. Adora's voice was calm but tight. "You knew this all this while and you let us suffer this much? Papa, you are evil. Do you know what it feels like to want love and never find it? To stretch your hand towards happiness and it disappears? To feel like you are cursed but don't even know why?" Chief Okoye shut his eyes. Adora looked at him for the first time with so much disdain in her eyes. "Papa, she didn't even cry when she told me about the evil you did to her. She just served me rice and spoke like the pain had never left." Chief Okoye stood up and walked to the window. His chest rose and fell repeatedly. He turned slowly to his daughter with eyes filled with guilt. "Do you want me to go to her?" Adora then replied, "Papa, you made a blood promise and you broke it. Now we are the ones suffering. You should be running to her. Go and beg for forgiveness and free us from this madness." The next day, Chief Okoye left the mansion without his usual convoy. He wore a plain shirt and trouser, no chains, no perfume, just the the scent of dust and guilt on his face. He walked through the market with his head bowed low. People stared at him. Some whispered, but he didn't stop walking. He found Chizoba, his longtime girlfriend, by the roadside under the faded red umbrella. She was scooping rice into nylon for a customer when she saw him. For a few minutes, they stared at each other without saying a word. He took one step forward, then another. Chizoba, he said. Uchenna, she answered. I am sorry. Chizoba chuckled. Sorry. After how many years? You think sorry will bring back what you broke? I didn't come to make excuses, he said. I came to beg for forgiveness. You didn't ask for forgiveness when you left me, she said. By this time, her voice was rising. You didn't ask when I cried into the same pot I now cook with. You didn't ask when I sold the last thing my mother gave to me just to help you start your own business. You threw me away like rag, and now your daughters are the ones wearing the stain. I know, he said quietly. I can't fix the past, but I am begging. Please release them. Punish me instead. Chizoba's lips trembled, and then a short silence fell between them. She had sacrificed so much for Chief Okoye when he was a nobody, but for how long will she carry the pain and hurt? Slowly, she stood up. She reached under the table and brought out a small pot. She poured palm wine into it, pulled out a rusty razor blade. Give me your palm, she said. Chief Okoye hesitated. Then she told him it was for his own good. Chizoba made a small cut, just like they did years ago. Then she did the same to herself. They both let the blood drip into the pot. She looked into the sky and whispered, Spirits that bind, spirits that witnesses, I break the chain, I release the vow. Let the Okoyes be free. Let joy return to the daughters of the man who wronged me. Chizoba broke the pot on the floor. She looked at him. Her eyes were tired but peaceful. It is done, she said. You and your family members are now free. Back in the mansion that evening, the air felt different and softer. Ifunaya laughed out loud for the first time in many months. Oluchi played music again, and Adora, she cried on her mother's laps, but it was tears of freedom. Everyone felt different in the Okoye's mansion. After everything, the heartbreaks, the whispers, the failed proposals, one afternoon, Adora stood in the sitting room with a man by her side. His name was Obina, a quiet but kind-hearted engineer. She had met Obina at their estate gate, where she had gone for morning walk for the first time in her life. She looked unsure but hopeful. Daddy, she said, this is the man I want to marry. Chief Okoye sat in silence, but beside him was his beautiful wife, who rose with joy in her eyes. She embraced Obina not long after. Kelechi, a successful entrepreneur, came for Ifunaya. They had met on social media, and their love story was not rushed. And Oluchi, the last born, she returned from Lagos one bright afternoon, and she wasn't alone. She walked through the mansion gate hand in hand with Tobechuku, a calm and mature lawyer who had fallen in love with her brilliance and not her family money. The news flew across the town, and to be fair, people were surprised. The Okoye daughters were finally getting married, all three of them, on the same day. 3 brides, 3 grooms, and one enormous celebration in the city of Enugu. On their big day, the Okoye girls were beautifully dressed in their Igbo traditional outfits and coral beads. They were glowing with elegance, their beauty sharp, and their joy unshaken. Guests came from everywhere: Abuja, Lagos, even from Ghana. The governor of the state sent a representative. Market women shouted. Children sang songs of praises. Mrs. Okoye danced like a woman who had waited all her life for this. Chief Uchenna Okoye wept through the ceremony, not from guilt but grace. His heart was full with peace and joy. 2 weeks later, Chief Okoye went back to that same right spot where Chizoba scooped rice for school children and travelers alike. He knelt before her. Chizoba, I broke you. I made a vow and I broke it. I am sorry. Today, I have come to say thank you. I have come to give you this. He handed her a folder. Inside was a deed to 3 shops at Ogbuefi Market registered in her name. A blank check enough for her to start her own restaurant. A written apology signed by him and witnessed by 2 elders. Chizoba looked at him for a long time. Then she said, Uchenna, I never wanted your money, but thank you. This money will go a long way for me. And in a few months, she opened her own restaurant and she named it Mama Zoba's Kitchen. It was just a few streets away from her former place. As for Chief Uchenna, he walked with his head bowed, not in shame anymore, but in humility. And this brings us to the end of the story of a man who pampered and almost ruined the lives of his daughters. Please don't forget to like, comment, and share with friends and family. Until next time, my name is Efwa of Folktales by Efwa. Thank you and bye!